So this has been a pretty big year of change for us. As you can see all the clothes, I'll explain that in a minute. Just for context, I think what we're doing here at Black Creek Farm and Nursery is changing a lot because this summer we're gonna have a second child, which is super exciting, and also a good time to kind of reflect, reset, and kind of reconsider a lot of the general goals that we have and a lot of the systems that we're going to be working with. So, because essentially we need a lot more time for family and a lot less time, well, not less time growing plants, but less time doing things that don't give us the balance that we want. And so this year we have decided to stop going to the farmers markets with fresh produce, which we've been doing for 8 years in a pretty big way. And so, among other things, that has given me an opportunity to repurpose the greenhouse, which is super fun. You can see here these three runs of drip tape, 2 on the other side. This, essentially this whole greenhouse used to be an annuals bedding plant production system. The neighbors, they had this old oil tank, which I still have to remove because I already took the heater out, but didn't take the tank out yet. Basically, this bench was the same across the board. So this middle was a double bench, and this side was also a bench, the remnants of which is there. So the whole thing was bench space for annuals in peat moss, basically. And so I still use this for bench space for growing all kinds of plants. This is where we grew all our veggie transplants, and now it's a lot of perennial stuff. And the middle I made into a planting bed, and then the side is softwood, semi-softwood cutting propagation for summer, which I've done videos about. So in the middle, we basically grew lettuce in the spring, arugula, quick growing greens in the spring, and then transitioned into cucumbers or tomatoes, sometimes other squash, like summer squash, but mostly it was tomatoes and cucumbers. And so you can see I've got all the hooks up here that I used to support the cucumbers, which actually made a showing this year as well. But they're part of a transition plan. So these are Chicago Hardy and Celeste and Olympian figs. So the 3 cold hardest along with 2 more that I'm going to have in the fall. And so the plan here is this, I'm not heating this greenhouse, but they can survive. They have survived. There are these monster figs in the back that also survive. And so I went to visit a neighbor of mine. He's just 10 minutes away from here, Lee Reich. He wrote the pruning book. He's doing a book on figs. He's a real horticulturist. And what I saw in his greenhouse, I'm going to mimic here. Essentially, it's an espalier type pruning, but the idea is I'm going to let the trunks of these figs grow up a little bit, maybe a foot off the ground, and then I'm just going to prune them to 2 horizontal branches. So 1 horizontal branch from this guy will be coming this way, and another will be going that way. So I'm probably not being very clear, but all of the branches will be pruned so that they're only in this one line. So there's each plant has a branch growing away from me and towards me. So basically they're a T, a low and wide T. And so I'll have 1 run of fruiting wood that goes all the way down, which gets pruned right back to that main trunk every year. And then the new wood comes up and we get a main crop of figs and no breva crop. The reason for that is that we keep 1 trunk, essentially 1 trunk all the way down, and then we can cover that with a row cover or something super easily to keep it a little bit warmer. So this is going to be kind of fruit production fig zone on either side. And yeah, so it's kind of exciting to be transitioning away from that annuals to have the figs. And during the transition, I'm going to have cucumbers here. I'm going to put 2 rows of peppers on either side. and that'll be our first year transition. And then after that, we'll have to see what can be commensurate with figs. I do have a bunch of experiments going on here. I've grown the Musa Baju, the fiber bamboo or fiber banana before. I'm just kind of trying to propagate that for fun. Loquats that did overwinter in here. This is taro, which also has overwintered in here for 3 years. And then the castor is just a nurse crop for feijoa, which is a pretty cool one. Feijoa is, I forget the scientific name right now, but essentially it's an amazing, crazy fruit that I just had a few years ago for the first time. And it's hardy to 15 degrees Fahrenheit, which with a little cover and the two layers of plastic with air blown in, we might actually be able to keep them alive. And then these are yacon, great, amazing sunflower family plant with delicious jicama-like tubers. This is Manihot gramnei, which is a cold hardy version of yucca or tapioca, arrowroot, many names. So I'm kind of, oh, and then this is yapon, which is Ilex vomitoria, this little guy here. And that's a caffeine-bearing holly that you can dry for tea. And yeah, so these are kind of all planted in a little Mediterranean / subtropical polyculture, with the idea being I'm going to install a little, probably a wire down the middle of these posts so that I can string over, we'll have a row of row cover going over the figs, and then we'll have something that we can drape down to cover the center with as well. And you know, it's going to be an unheated situation. I don't want to try to grow any things that require heat over the winter. That doesn't seem very fun to me, kind of stressful. But if it can survive with just a row cover and 2 layers of plastic blown in, with air blown in between so it's kind of insulated, then I will be happy to grow it. Oh, and I thought I mentioned all the clothes. We had a clothing moth outbreak, and so we had to bring everything out here, sun it out, and check for moths before we bring back in sealed bags. Very hard to deal with clothing moths organically, but obviously we're committed to doing that. So anyway, yeah, so that's the vibe of the greenhouse. Pruning back the rosemary, which has been here for 7 years, I think. Pruned it back hard this year to let the fig experiment run. And so yeah, it's feeling a lot better, even though there's a lot of clothes and other things like that in here. It's actually feeling super good and organized, like it kind of hasn't in a while. So I've got the propagation, perennial, kind of experimentation / legit fig fruit production, and then my bench space. So this is, oh, and then I did a fun update on the germination chamber. It's insulated, and the problem is whenever I seed stuff, I get mice really want to get all the seeds. So essentially what I did is I just put these brackets on here and have this piece of wood that can go across the bottom, and then I still need to put one on the top. And then this is repurposed from a greenhouse build. And so essentially it's a lot of shelves. There's a crock pot down here that can keep it warm and humid, some heat mats if I need them, mouse traps, which we'll hopefully no longer need anymore because this thing actually seals really tight. And I had some cedar fencing that I could use to tighten this thing up a bit. And this actually seals really tightly, and just the simplest system ever for closing it, just to put this nice and tight. And Yeah, nothing's getting in there. So that one on the top, and then to truly top it all off, this is the cat sleeping zone, and 2 cats are usually sleeping here these days. So that way I can start things like, we've got a sweet corn planting, which I'm just gonna do a video about pretty soon. Very exciting new way of growing, crops. But yeah, a new thing I'm working on that I'm very excited about. I'll share about that soon. But that and things like hazelnuts in trays, really great. It's really good to seed a bunch of stuff in trays, because in the spring I find I plant a lot of things out. Certain things work, certain things don't, and then sometimes I have empty bed space, or sometimes I have planting ideas that come up later in the spring and I can't really move plants that are in the ground. So it's really nice to have a lot of plant material that I can plant out. And then of course I could also put these in pots and sell them and stuff like that. So I try to reserve a little bit of my seed for doing it like this, but you can't keep these alive if they're in a place where rodents get to them. So at least for the first stages of germinating, I'll have my germination chamber. Anyway, a lot of work to get this place cleaned back up and feeling good, even though it doesn't look too clean right now. It feels pretty good for me anyway, and very functional, and very exciting to have like a potential fruit production drying down and making dried figs available.